to us by Audit and Risk. And I'm going to ask Councillor Daniel Newman, as the lead councillor on that committee, to introduce each item. The first item relates to the health, safety and wellbeing performance. So if I can ask Councillor Newman to move that, and maybe the Deputy Mayor, who's also on that committee, to second it, that will put it on the table. Councillor Newman, if you'd like to introduce the item, and then I'll ask Paul Robertson, our General Manager of Health, Safety and Wellbeing, to also comment briefly. Councillor Newman.
Yes, look, thank you, Your Worship, and just as to foreshadow, I'm happy to move items 10, 11 and 12, but with respect to item 10, this is a standing report that the Audit and Risk Committee considers in relation to health, safety and wellbeing. I think, look, this report and the committee's consideration, it's a fascinating area to be looking at, because health and safety and wellbeing within the Auckland Council family and within the space that we operate is fundamental, but it's obviously becoming more and more pertinent given the COVID-19 world in which we live. So the Audit and Risk Committee considered this particular report and has referred it to the governing body for consideration, and I commend this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Paul Robertson, if you'd like to make any introductory comment at this point too, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and kia ora koutou. So this report covers off our performance in health, safety and wellbeing over the past several months, and provides an update on key activities that have been underway in Council to manage some of our risks and the health, safety and wellbeing of our staff. The impact of COVID-19 obviously continues to be felt, and significant effort has gone on through the organisation to ensure that we are responding as effectively as possible to the risks of COVID-19, but to also ensure that we manage the elements of control, such as vaccination. And so in the report, you'll note a comment on vaccination. I will just clarify that since the report was written and provided to Audit and Risk, there has been movement in this area. We have obviously released requirements for our staff and certain contractors within our workplaces. Guidelines are still also being prepared for elected members and for other contractors. But that work has continued to be reviewed regularly, and we will continue to provide updates as things move in that space. The only other point I would make is just the impact of COVID-19 again on the service delivery that we've had with staff members being at home. That has reduced our lost time injury frequency rate, which you'll note in the report. That is something that once we are back into business as usual, so to speak, we would expect that to rise back up into a more normalised view of our incident reports. Otherwise, I'll take the report as read and take any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Paul, and for your work on that. So I have one question so far. Councillor John Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to pick up on a couple of the points in the report to Audit and Risk, particularly as it goes to the Speak Up program that is covered off at points 18 and 19, where we're looking to set up, a kind of independent system that to increase confidence for staff members to raise issues they might have, without any fear of, I guess, retribution or being found out. So that's good to see that that's proceeding apace. Just below it, however, there's a reference again to the Speak Up program, and again in context of making it safe and secure channel, and it mentions these exit interview programs. I'm just curious to know, in the first instance, so there's a couple of questions I've got on that. With people leaving the council, is it standard practice for exit interviews to occur as a matter of course? That's my first question.
Thanks,
Paul.
Councillor. I believe that exit interviews are undertaken. It's not an area that I have a high degree of visibility in because that's run out of our people and culture team. And I don't believe I've got a member of that team on the call. That is something that I will double check. The comment is very much in relation to making sure that we do these and ensuring that we ask effective questions to understand the experience of our people while they've been working with us. As to how often they are happening right now, I just don't have that data. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. I guess if I apply it to the real world, so perhaps leave the general procedure, but perhaps to instances where, and I'm thinking of this case that was pretty widely reported earlier in the year, where where a senior manager was alleged to have bullied a number of staff, and there was some pretty horrendous consequences in terms of the particular staff there, to the point where they left the council, and in one case a junior staffer sort of had post-traumatic stress for 2.5 years. I guess what I'm very eager to find out is that in instances such as that, where there's a process followed, where there's some behaviour that's detrimental to staff welfare and no doubt to departments' welfare, is there in the Speak Up process an automatic assumption, therefore, that those sort of individuals that leave council, that go through the ringer, if I can express it that way, are they then debriefed in terms of their experiences, as opposed to just paying them off and letting them go? Does that happen as a matter of course, so that it is, aside from everything else, a learning experience for all involved?
That's a very good question. Do I know whether or not that's happening? Unfortunately, I just don't have that information to hand, but that is the intention of this piece of work. That was something that was raised through the Hawara review that you're all aware of, to ensure that where we have events like this, that they are picked up through either Speak Up to manage them proactively, but also to check in with our people as they leave the organisation and understand their experiences and how that was managed. And I see Jim might have a comment.
Jim, you might like to comment on that as Chief Executive.
Yeah, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor, for the question. Just a couple of things to clarify. We do, as a matter of course, offer every exiting employee the opportunity for an exit interview. Not every employee takes us up on that offer. But it is our practice to make that part of our process. Secondly, I think, Councillor, in response to your question, there are kind of a broad set of things that we're considering here. As Paul highlighted, it was picked up as an area of necessary focus for us in the Hawara review. It is related to the way that we construct the Speak Up channel, ensuring as much independence around that conversation as possible. And it also goes to culture and the nature of what it's like to work at Auckland Council. As you probably know, we're putting a lot of work into all of those things. We're certainly putting a lot of work into our culture, into leadership characteristics, into the very specific actions that we can take out of the Hawara review, in order to create a workplace where people feel much more confident that they can share their experiences with us, not just at a point where they feel like they need to leave the organisation, but at any point during their employment. And so I really appreciate the question, but the response obviously is quite a wide-ranging set of things that we're doing in order to shift the dial, if you like, around the employee experience of working at Auckland Council. And I am pleased that we're making some really good progress there. It'll be measured in a number of ways, including through staff engagement, which is continuing to to kind of move in a positive direction as we've measured it every quarter over the last year and a bit. So number of things we're doing, and pleased that we're making some progress, but I appreciate the question.
Just one final question, Mr. Mayor, and just in terms of that, shifting the dial, I'm assuming that as part of this development of this process, which as I said, I'm pleased to see that kind of independent perspective being brought to it. I think that's very important. But when we do have incidents, or we've had an incident such as the one I quoted, somewhat in the abstract, but an incident nonetheless that impacts obviously on a number of people who leave, and then a department as a whole. In terms of that kind of integrity or encouraging people to have faith in the speak up process, I'm assuming that within that department then that there is some sort of feedback mechanism, and you'd think in terms obviously of a meeting where things are laid out on the table, so to speak, and people are availed of the process that has been gone through and how it has worked, so that there is some sort of introspection in that sense of how any given incident plays out for the benefit of the group as a whole, as opposed to people getting an exit package and leading, so that the people that remain are then encouraged by the way a specific complaint has played out. So is there a kind of department type momentum to this as well, as opposed to just dealing with people individually?
Yes, thanks, Councillor. Yes, there is in specific cases, in the case of the team I think that you're referring to, we did undertake a number of interventions, if you like, to make sure that people had the opportunity to share their concerns with us or their experiences. We were also very careful about the appointment of subsequent leaders into that space, and encouragingly, we're making some really good progress there. It is a good observation. Those sorts of experiences can have an impact on certain parts of our organisation for a long period of time, and we have to intervene and make sure that those experiences are heard and properly dealt with, not just for that department, but for the broader improvement across our organisation. But the short answer to the question is yes, we do those sorts of things.
Thanks, Jim. Next question, Linda Cooper.
Thank you. I guess I just felt a little bit uncomfortable with a comment made earlier about we just pay people off and get them out. I would hope that's not the case, and I think, Jim, you might have given that a better through you, Mr. Chair, but you teased that out a bit more, but given this is a public meeting, I didn't like that just sitting there. So I just want, I suppose, some assurance that we always go through a proper process. We don't just sweep people out and get them out of the way with money, because that's what it sounded like.
Yes, Councillor, thank you for the question. No, it's not our practice simply to exit people by paying money. We always undertake a rigorous process that complies with employment law, and we rely on our employee relations advisory team to make sure that we're operating in a way that complies with employment law. And importantly, I think we do work pretty hard to make sure that people are held to account for their performance. And so, sometimes people's employment comes to an end because of poor performance, and that's the way that we have to operate. So we always apply that lens, and we operate within the parameters of employment law.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions. Are there any comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation, which is that we note the report and that's been provided to the local boards. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. I declare that carried. Item number 11, also from Audit and Risk, is the Enterprise Risk Update. It will be moved by Councillor Newman,